Welcome everyone to the second session of the Future Leaders program. I hope everyone enjoyed the launch last fortnight. It's good to see everyone's back for the second session. For anyone who doesn't remember, my name is Tim Blakemore, Senior Business Banker from NAB. Took part in the program 2 years ago, so I'm now volunteer helping run the program. Today's session is on authentic leadership, and we're lucky to have Jeremy from Reach here to present for the session. I don't have a special bio. Jeremy's going to take care of all of that by himself, so can I ask everyone please welcome Jeremy.
Cool, clapping, don't peak too early. My name's Jeremy. I'm here with an organisation called Reach. Before I sort of give a little bit of a brief, has anyone here heard of Reach before? Okay, one person a little bit. So basically Reach is an organisation that started in the middle of the 90s in Melbourne by two guys. One was Jim Steins, who played AFL football for Melbourne, and the other's a movie director by the name of Paul Curry. And basically they met, he used to play AFL, so he was running a camp for teenagers, teaching them how to hand pass and kick a footy. Wasn't really getting them to pay a huge amount of attention to him. And then Paul came and ran a drama workshop and completely changed the whole dynamic of the camp. And at the end of that camp, Jim said to Paul, I'd love to come along and see you in action. Paul said, why don't we just run something together? Blah, 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 Reach. I got involved in Reach when I was in high school. I went to school, I'm from Melbourne, so I went to school in a place in Melbourne that can only be described as the arsehole of Melbourne, a place called Broadmeadows. I know there's a Broadmeadow up here. I don't know what that area is like, but in Broadmeadows in Melbourne, if you went there after about 5 p.m, that's a license to get stabbed. It was really dodgy, and I'm not going to lie, part of me knows that if any of my high school teachers saw that I was running an authentic leadership workshop, they would laugh and say that I was taking the piss. Because for me, I got involved in Reach completely by accident. For me, school was about sport, playing footy, basketball, swimming, doing all the sports, and I went to a co-ed school, so I was about sport and chasing girls. And for me, that was my school existence. I was a bit of a smart ass. I didn't really give too much of a stuff about anything that was going on there. And one day when I was in year 10, the coordinator walked into my homeroom and he goes up to a group of my mates and he's like, hey guys, we have the school leadership day on. Do you want to go? And they're like, oh, I will go, but you have to ask Jez to come along. Because they thought if I went there, at the very least, I'd make the day entertaining for them. And so the coordinator came up to me, he's like, all right, Jeremy, do you want to come to the school leadership day? And I said no, because it was the school leadership day and I thought it'd be a bit of a wank. So I didn't want to go. My mates went, and it was this really strange thing where the day was actually awesome. So they came back, and I remember the whole train ride home, they're just yapping away about, oh, we did this and we did that, we did this, we did that. And I had this like horrible feeling because I was the only one of that friendship circle that didn't go. So I couldn't participate in anything. The school did all these cool things, which was really unusual for my school. And I just felt like I'd missed out on something. Next day, the coordinator came around again. He says, okay, we have another leadership day. Who wants to go? And I threw my hand straight up there because I thought it was the same day my mates went to, but it was a Reach day. And I'd never heard of Reach, I didn't know anything about it. The following week when my coordinator was explaining it to me, it sounded like a hippie cult where people were standing around campfires, holding hands, singing Kumbaya, which, hey, look, if you're into that, that's totally okay, but I could not have been further away from being into that sort of stuff. So I didn't want to go, and I walked out of the meeting and the school vice captain pulled me aside. She's like, Jez, you have to go to this day. And if you don't go, I'll tell the coordinator. And she was the sort of person who would have done that, so I figured I'd go. The one thing my coordinator told me that got my attention was that there were going to be 400 people my age there. So I thought to myself, great, there's going to be some hot single girls there. So I rocked up there with the sole aim to get as many phone numbers as possible, because back then it's not like you added someone on Facebook because it didn't exist. So I went there with that in mind. It was in a massive, massive room, like literally there were 400 people there, so the room was about 20 times the size of this room, but everyone was sitting in rows like you guys are, and I found myself sitting towards the back, and to be honest, I wasn't into it. I was bored, and my default position, even to this day, which is something I definitely have to work on, is when I'm bored, I just go into smart ass mode and just start to piss fart around a little bit, and I was doing that. and it was distracting Jim Steins, who was up on stage. And Jim Steins is about 6'6", tall, Irish. Like he was a mean-looking dude. And I could tell I was really starting to piss him off. And it got to that point where you see it sometimes in film and TV where they have like the angel version and the devil version on the shoulder. It was getting to that point where I knew if I said one more thing to him, I'd push him over the edge and get a reaction. I thought, I've never really heard anyone go off with an Irish accent before, so that would be really funny. But then Angel me's like, don't know if that's a good idea, mate. People at Reach will tell you school, you get into all sorts of shit for it. And so I thought about it. And I decided in the moment, actually, let's be honest, I didn't really think too hard about it. I decided I was going to say something. And I don't even remember what I said, other than it didn't really make sense, but it really pissed off Jim Steins. And then all of a sudden he's like, you, come up the front. And I went up to the front of the room, and as I was walking up, because it was such a long walk with that amount of people in the room, I was walking up sort of arming myself with all the different smart-ass comebacks I could use, because I was sure he was going to tell me off. And he would have been well within his right to have told me off. And I get up to the front, he gives me a microphone, and I was just like, this is the greatest thing ever. I've got the power now. And he didn't tell me off. Completely threw me. I wasn't expecting that. He started to ask me all these different questions about who I was and what I was about, and I wasn't prepared for that. That was not even anywhere near my train of thought as I was making my way up to the front of the room. And so I didn't know how to answer them. And he got to the point where he's like, okay, Jeremy, like, you know, let's talk about you and who you are. So, you know, who are you? Who's Jeremy? And I'm like, me, I'm Jeremy. He's like, yeah, but who are you? I'm Jeremy. And he looked at me confused, and I wasn't even taking the piss. Like, I just didn't even know what he was asking of me. And he started like speaking to the rest of the room, and he came back to me. He's like, so keeping everything in mind with what I've just said to the room. And I was like, oh shit, I wasn't even paying attention to that. He's like, I ask you again, who are you? Tapping the heart, because he wanted me to speak from the heart. I remember looking at him like, Jeremy. And then this thing happened where all 400 people in the room started laughing at me. And I'd never experienced that. I was the one making the jokes. I was never the butt of the jokes. And I hated that feeling so much. I remember sitting back down in the back row. I sat there, arms folded. I started sulking, and I was pissed off. Like, I hated Jim. I hated all the Reach people. I hated everyone in the room because they were laughing at me. And after about 10 minutes of sitting there sulking, I found myself being swept up with what they were doing. And that took me by surprise. Like, I found myself actually participating in the workshop, and I wasn't trying to participate. I just found myself going along on the ride because it really struck a chord with me. And that taught me something really valuable as I left that workshop, just about those moments where sometimes if you go into something with a really preconceived idea and then something really different happens, the value that you can get from that, and going into things with an open mind. And in terms of like, since then, that was a while ago now. Since then, I've run a lot of stuff for Reach. I've worked in the AFL, I've worked in the NRL, and a lot of different roles, not just stuff like this. And so today, we're just going to explore the themes authentic leadership. With that, my idea on leadership is that each person has their own definition of that, and we're going to get to that in a sec. But one thing I will say, as I was standing there at the front, I noticed a lot of people had phones, so if you do have a phone on you, please turn it on silent. Last thing we want is for that to go off in the middle of this. And if it does go off in the middle of this, I might even answer it for you. And we don't want that. And the other thing with this is how I operate is not going to be 2 hours of me talking at you guys, because that's boring for me, boring for you guys. It's a bit of everyone. I want to hear everyone's voice. And that can look like a lot of different things. That could mean one of you standing up here talking. That can mean when I move things around a little bit, you guys are talking amongst yourselves, but requires more than one voice. Also, before I continue, I've got back spasms at the moment. So if you see me mid-sentence, just like wince in huge amounts of pain, that's why. All right, so before we get started, leadership. What does that mean for you guys? I just want to get a definition out of the way as soon as we start so that we all know where we're coming from with it. And because I can't actually lift my arm up all that high, if someone could be so kind to do the writing up on the whiteboard for me. Sweet.
I'm left-handed, so I'll probably run
Oh,
as I go.
that's okay. We have a vast array of textures here for you to choose from. Blue. There you go. Very nice. And what is your name, sorry? Trish. So, how do we define leadership?
Guidance.
Guidance, yep. And just, write them all up.
Motivation.
Yep. And when you say motivation, is that providing motivation, or like, how do you unwrap that?
Yeah, I'd say providing motivation for your team.
Right. Someone else? Support, yep. So if you just walked in, we're just unpacking your personal definition of leadership, so that we're all on the same page.
Building culture.
Yeah, great one. Setting a culture.
Empathy.
Perfect. Oh, you've just come in and just gone whack, haven't you? There. Probably shouldn't have done that movement there either. Someone else. Respect. Maybe a couple more.
Passionate or passion.
Yep. Sweet. And charisma. Perfect. Any others that are screaming out to you that haven't been said yet?
Engagement.
Engagement. Yep. Unpack that a little bit more.
I guess engaging your employees, so people who are reporting to you, as a form of motivation and as a form of support, and I guess getting the best out of them from a productivity point of view.
Perfect. Really good. Someone said something.
Teamwork.
Teamwork. Yeah.
Delegation.
Great one. Sometimes one of the biggest things with leadership is knowing when to be at the front of the room and then knowing when to step back and let other people take the spotlight.
Trust.
Really good.
Integrity.
Great.
Constructive criticism.
Sure. Yeah, giving feedback's a big one. Being able to give good feedback so it's palatable to the audience. And also being able to receive it too. It's one of the hard things as a leader. Sometimes you don't receive it in a leadership position, so your own personal development can tend to stunt a little bit.
I think like achieve it like getting the best out of the team.
So glad I don't have to write achievement because I always get the spelling wrong.
Oh, you made it twice.
Any others?
Communication.
Communication and then
Vision.
and vision. Sweet. Any others?
I don't know whether it's too close to empathy, but like compassion.
Yeah, for sure. Any others?
Excellent vision, values.
For sure.
Friday hour maybe is.
Yeah, definitely. And do you know what? Like, they're those little things that can really make a culture strong. And it's not necessarily specifically knocking off and having your Friday froths, but those little things that bring the group together where it's not about work, massive in setting a culture. For sure. Sweet. Anyone, do you have any? You've been writing everyone else's. Do you have any?
Oh, I think they took all of mine.
Yep, sweet. Cool.
Probably covering others, but also walking the walk.
Yeah, being an example.
This probably comes in integrity a little bit as well.
I don't know, like when I worked in the NRL, I worked for Melbourne Storm, and that was one of their overarching values, and they got rid of a lot of very good players who wouldn't fit their values and wouldn't walk the walk. Sometimes they've been vindicated by that because they've mucked up elsewhere, but yeah, that was one of the things. They were ruthless on it. Any others?
Emotional intelligence.
Definitely. And from your perspective, why do you think that's an important aspect of leadership?
Just being able to understand yourself and understanding others and how that can affect the way that you work together can make or break a team.
Yeah, sure. Any others? Great list. Sweet. Good stuff. Thank you, Trish. So, I've already we've sort of unpacked a couple of them. I just want to pick out a couple more and get you guys to sort of talk about what that means for you, and then we'll sort of move on from there. But I just really want to, I just think it's important when you're running a workshop on leadership. It's one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot in business, but very little time is spent actually unpacking what that looks like for the individuals. So I just think that this is a really important thing to start off a workshop that's about, you know, authentic leadership. So building a culture. Someone could unpack that and what you think is important when it comes to building a culture. It doesn't necessarily have to be who said that either.
Yeah, I think you just want to have, say it's a workplace, you want to have a place where people are happy to come. You're not going to get anything out of the work if it's an effort to get out of bed every day to get there. If you can have that camaraderie there that they look forward to going to work, like it's not based around that end product that you're trying to achieve. You can create a good working environment and culture.
Yeah.
It's goes a long way to getting that end result efficiently.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Someone else, what do you think is important?
Yeah, to follow on from that is having a purpose or a mission statement, and if everyone's going to a purpose, and then you can build your culture, and if you can build a culture around being accountable to each other, then and having responsibility, taking responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah. Great.
If you're setting a purpose or a vision or value, then you're actually setting a set of guidelines or rules so that people can be measured by that. If you're not following those goals or those rules, then the leader can be disciplining or doing what needs to be done.
Yep, for sure.
It's also breaking boundaries between us and them, and production staff, which ties into it as well.
Yeah, and that's, you know, breaking down those barriers. Like a lot of places, and especially like working in sport, like each department works in a silo, and it's hard to break those silos down sometimes. So being able to recognise that's a really important step. It's one of those things sometimes you don't realise until you change organisation or clubs or business.
I think, like you said too, the Friday afternoon beers, you know, like spending time with workmates outside of work always builds that culture.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really easy thing to do. What about trust? Unpack that again.
Well, probably related to another one there, but like the constructive criticism. If you don't have that trust from your workers, like that's just going to bounce and that. Like he's going to walk away from you and do stuff ridiculous. So if you get that trust from your workers, it's a really good part of, I guess, creating a culture as well.
Yep, for sure. Someone else?
I think I was going to shame in the way that I guess all out for the gyms and things in most organisations, employees don't like seeing sudden change, they're not really aware of, they like to sort of know where the business is headed and they feel like they're, you know, part of the same journey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I'd like to change an organisation, especially if it comes out of the blue. Yeah, great one. Any others on trust?
I think trust is, what I try and do is just if you do what you say you're going to do, and you know, you may not always achieve it, but see them do something, do it, they do trust you. The next time you see them do something or you
Yeah.
try to do something, that's quite simple.
I think at some point you're going to have to make a hard decision or an unpopular decision, and if people don't trust you, then they're not going to trust the decision.
Yeah, or respect to that decision. Yeah, for sure.
Ties into the leading by example one, but if you're going to be asking, you know, your guys or your staff to be doing something that you expect them to do, they will have a certain higher amount of trust for you if they have seen that you're leading by example or doing the same thing that you're asking them to do.
Yep.
And you know, have done that in the past, and then if you ask them to do that following that, they can see that.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess last one, and we sort of unpacked it a little bit, but I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and your interpretations of emotional intelligence and its importance as a leader and in the workplace.
I think a lot of it's about psychology and understanding the people and understanding what they're feeling or thinking. You know, because when you're at work, it's not necessarily just about work. There might be other things going on in someone's life. You've got to be able to understand what's going on and be able to I suppose, follow the cues that they might be giving. They might not tell you exactly what's going on, but they'll be giving you cues as to like, this is not right.
Yeah. Sure. Do you have an example from, I'm just absolutely putting you on the spot here, do you have an example from your workplace where you've managed to do that or seen it demonstrated? Or maybe someone else does?
No, not in particular.
Yeah.
No.
Really throwing you on the spot there.
I think in your workplace you can tell if something's, you know, people are unhappy and it's not necessarily work related.
Yeah.
You know, so it's sometimes just a matter of asking, is everything okay?
Yeah. Yeah, and it literally can be that simple sometimes.
And knowing what motivates your staff as well. Like, everyone's motivated by different means, and you know, I find getting to know what motivates each person, you can sort of get them to do, you know, work around them and get them to do what you need to achieve.
For sure. Sometimes it's wrap your arm around, sometimes it's shine the bird up and give them a boot. Yeah. Any others on emotional intelligence?
It's really helpful to help someone distinguish between strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
So it's about knowing you, and not just finding those weaknesses as a barrier, but okay, how can we get you out of your comfort zone with those in the workplace with your strengths? How can we leverage that? How can you teach someone else that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Really good. Anyone else? So, off that, let's just now tweak it a little bit. Who are some of the people who you personally identify as leaders? They can be in your life or famous, dead or alive. Like, who are people that you personally identify as a leader and why? And so with this, for the rest of this workshop, the biggest thing that I like to unpack is the why. It's really easy to talk about what and how. Anyone can do that, but the why is the most important thing, because that's where you drive that purpose and those values from, is the why. So who are some of those leaders who you look up to and why?
I've just got a soccer coach.
Yeah.
And look, he's the same age as me, and he's actually a good mate of mine. We were playing together. So you need to distinguish between those two, but you think you've got 11 people trying to achieve the same goal, and you can have egos, you can have different talents, everything. It's quite easy to go watch and have 11 people trying to do 11 different things, and he's got so much respect, or those boys have got so much respect for him, that he managed to get people of his same age or older, which can often be a huge barrier in those things, having somebody younger than you telling you what to do. And yeah, I've just got a lot of respect for him that way, and he manages that he has to make tough decisions on people not playing and things like that, but then, you know, we can have that beer afterwards and everything's forgotten about, you know, it's sort of left on the field and you go about your daily business in between those couple of days a week, but yeah, that's soccer.
Awesome. What is it about him that you think, like, how do you think he gets to that point? What is it about his values or traits where he can get to that point easily?
Look, he's someone that can identify, I guess, it's probably based around emotional intelligence. He can relate to everyone what what their, I guess, strengths or weaknesses are, how to deliver that hard news that you're not playing this week. Like some people can take it in front of a crowd, some people, you know, you walk to the side and give them the heads up. Some people want to know why, and he can make the tough calls, and I guess his knowledge of the game is something that a lot of people respect, so his knowledge is a big part of
Yeah. Great. Really good. Awesome. Someone else?
I'll go with my people leader.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence is very much a big part of what she does. Culture, she has built such a great culture in our team. We trust her, you know, crappy decisions come through and she's generally just the person that's telling us what the decision is or the change is, but at the end of the day we come back to her because we trust her. You know, a lot of people, they'll tell you about something that might be quite negative, and that's it, you won't have anything to do with them or you disregard everything they say after that. But when it's someone like that you trust, you go back to them, you're like, okay, I can probably see why that decision's been made. You try and understand what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Really good. Someone else? Leader in your own world? Or in your eyes?
parents, that's the one.
Yeah. Sure. And the interesting thing with like parents, and parents is a really easy one for this to unpack, is that sometimes they can be really positive leaders, sometimes they can be really negative leaders. Are they still leaders? Yeah. Being a leader doesn't necessarily always be a positive thing. You know, like going back to my story about how I got into, I guess, being here right now, like, none of that was positive. You know, I was a very negative leader growing up. Still a leader. So what we're going to do now, actually before I continue, does anyone have any thoughts, any questions, anything that's sort of in the front of your mind about something we've spoken about or something that's completely irrelevant that you want to just sort of voice? Sweet. With this, the whole rest of the workshop, so I've already said, want to unpack the why. Next thing that is important with these workshops is that there's no such thing as a right answer and there's no such thing as a wrong answer, there's just your answer. And it's always going to be right if you're being honest. Okay, if you try and be correct, everyone knows that you don't actually believe it, and we don't want that. I just want to know what you as individuals think. Sweet. So what's going to happen is when I say go, you're all going to stand up and you're going to move your chairs to the side. Pay attention to like your stuff, so just chuck it under the seats, but just know which stuff belongs to you, because I know everyone's got their satchels here and you don't want to go home with someone else's wallet and mobile phone. Maybe you do, I don't know, I work for a charity so I probably do. But do that and then just stand in a circle for me. Go. Close that up for me, please. So I'm going to do something now as I just stand here that's a little bit different. And as I said at the start, like this workshop requires a lot of you guys to actually participate and be a part of it. I can run this workshop 100 different times and say the same thing 100 different times, but I'll get 100 different responses, and it's always dependent on the people in the room. So far you guys are bringing it, and I'd love to see that continue. I'm going to do something now where I'll give you the rules around it first, and then I'll explain how it's going to happen. Rule number one is it's in complete silence. The only voice that you'll hear is my voice until I say, you know, do you guys have any questions or yada, yada, yada. Okay, so otherwise, complete silence. Rule number two is try and be as honest as you can. So, they're the only two rules. It's a long list. I'm going to say a statement. If the statement applies to you, you walk to a different part of the circle. If it doesn't apply to you, you stay there. Let's do a couple of practice ones first, because some people, it's one of those things where I always think it sounds like really logical, but I've also run this 1,000 times. So I'll just step out of the circle now. So close out for me. So, and I'll start every statement with cross the circle. Okay, but it's not like Simon says, there's no like punishment or anything if I don't say it. So, cross the circle if you are not from Newcastle. Cross the circle if you are a male. Cross the circle if you have black hair. Sweet. You guys are so good. All right, so now they're the practice ones. Now we'll just go into the ones that are a bit more on topic. All right, so cross the circle if you have someone in your life who you look up to. Good. And with any of these questions that I throw out, any of these statements, it's always going to be how you interpret it. Okay, same with leadership, as you said, as we said, you know, to define leadership, there was a huge list. With these, it's always how you as an individual interpret it. Cross the circle if you have someone in your life that looks up to you. Cross the circle if you have someone in your life who you take things out on. Cross the circle if someone in your life has ever told you that you inspire them, and that could be because of just how you carry yourself, something you've done, something that you've said, but someone has told you at any point in your life that you inspire them. Cross the circle if you just can't help yourself, but with that, by when you see a problem, you want to provide a solution. Cross the circle if you keep your mouth shut to keep the peace or to get things done. Cross the circle if you avoid conflict. Cross the circle if you love conflict. It's okay if that's true for you, by all means. Cross the circle if you've ever put someone else down. Cross the circle if you ever criticised someone from your workplace. Cross the circle if you bitch about people behind their backs in your workplace. Cross the circle if you have ever publicly acknowledged someone from your workplace for something good or great that they have done. From my experience, people often get a little bit confused at this next one, so unpack it in your mind first before you walk or stand still. But cross the circle if you yourself do what you ask others to do. Cross the circle if you can be a little bit hypocritical and ask others to do things that you yourself won't do. Cross the circle if you've ever been dishonest at work. Cross the circle if you've ever cleaned up after yourself in the lunchroom or tea room or when you've had lunch at work. Cross the circle if you've ever initiated those Friday Arvo drinks. And cross the circle if you see yourself as a leader. Great. So, I just want you to turn to the person next to you, and if there's a group of three, that's fine. What did you notice in that? What stood out to you? They're the two questions you have to answer. Go. Alrighty. I just want to hear from a few of you guys, like, what in that last bit stood out for you? What did you notice? What did you take from that experience?
I guess for me, well, I eventually just, the way you interpret it, like, you initially might have thought no or something, but just in your head you kept going over and you managed to just think, like, even if the question was, like, if you wanted to be doing something 100% of the time, but it's very hard to say that you have done, and then you'd like walk late, or a couple of them didn't walk, but then I just found a completely different way of thinking about it, and I'm like, oh shit, I should have walked.
Yep.
I've just turned that around in my head and like, yeah, just opened it up different ways, so and just thinking constantly.
For sure. Great, really good. Someone else?
One thing I mentioned in our chat at the end there is like one of the observations I made, because I did look to see what everyone else done, and 90% of people walked, was the sheepish reaction to do your bitch behind people's back, and everyone went,
Yeah, for sure. But then the good thing about that whole experience was, even though that's something that's got a negative connotation to it, everyone still fronted up and crossed. So that in itself shows a huge amount of leadership to be able to put yourself on the line to do that and display that to a room full of people.
I think it was quite confronting in a way in following that sentence there, is that I guess it's easier to be accountable when you don't have to explain yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it highlights that leaders can be flawed. We don't have to be just what's on that whiteboard, characteristics that perhaps we're not all that proud of, but the more important thing is to identify that, hey, we do the wrong thing sometimes, but being able to admit that and mitigate it so that we're trying our best not to do it is more important than striving to be perfect.
Absolutely. Really good.
Makes you relate.
Makes you human, yeah.
Yeah, like when it said a little bit dishonest at first, like, no, I shouldn't walk. And then I just thought about the smallest little thing I've been dishonest about. I was like,
And that's the thing, it's your own interpretation. So, you know, it might be, you know, something really minor. It could be like a big thing or a conversation that you've had with someone. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret that. Any other thoughts or things that you noticed during that?
Obviously there was times when some people crossed and some people didn't cross, but that doesn't mean that the people that didn't cross aren't leaders or the people that did cross aren't leaders. Not everyone's going to have the same characteristics.
For sure. And the thing with leaders is not all leaders have a label. So like, and again, like referring back to sport, like not all leaders have the title captain or vice captain. You can still be the leader on field or, you know, throughout the week. Same in the workplace. Just because someone has manager, sometimes the manager is not the leader. And judging by a few of the smiles on your faces, you're probably experiencing that in your workplace currently. And that's fine, it's normal. But I'm just going to chuck a quote up on the screen, and it's a quote that, it's quite a well-known quote, and it's something that you've probably seen or come across. Some of you may not have, and that's cool too, but I just want you to read it, and I'll just give you a minute or two upon reading it just to reflect on your own thoughts on it. And then I'd love to hear what that means to you. And I don't normally use a lot of tech in my workshops, so hey, this might explode or something, who knows? Hey. What are your thoughts or reflections upon reading that? And that quote's from Marianne Williamson. Nelson Mandela has a version as well. Or if you like basketball, Coach Carter, great movie, Samuel L. Jackson. What are your thoughts or reflections on that?
It's an interesting quote. It's actually one of my favourites. I've read it quite a bit. The culture that we live in really makes us sort of, makes you think, well, who am I to, you know, do something great, or, you know, it sort of encourages you to, play small. And I think as Australians, like, they have the tall poppy syndrome that sort of does encourage people not to step out of line and not to say something that might be, a little bit different to what the norm is. So, I think it's a great quote and, a great way to frame it.
Sure. Is there a line in particular, or part of that in particular, that really speaks to you?
I think that we're powerful beyond measure, or, and then I think that the playing small part in it really speaks to me personally. So, I've actually used it before. This is the quote before around. I had a baby recently, but so it was realising, the power that you go through. I don't know if anyone's had a kid, but becoming a mother, you definitely go to places that you've never been to before, and you don't realise how powerful you are. So it can be applied in different scenarios.
Great, awesome, so cool. Someone else? Your reflections on that, and if there's a part of it that really stood out to you?
Just playing. Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. I was going to say it's pretty hard to top that.
and that's the thing, and you can get into that a little bit, but this is your own unique experience. Because sometimes in these workshops, someone does say something that's like truly incredible, and you think, well, I can't top that, like I'm not going to say anything, but it's your experience of that, and that's so valid. It's just as valid because that's her experience, which is fantastic. Yours is also fantastic because it's from you.
Well, I was just going to say, just playing to that tall poppy syndrome type thing, I think workplace culture also plays a lot into it. So some organisations have a culture where people don't want to go above and beyond because they're seen as, being above the pack sort of thing, whereas other workplaces have a culture of really supporting each other and celebrating the fact that people are trying to improve and do better.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a contrast there.
For sure.
I was going to say a similar thing. It's fitting in, and the workplace culture doing that, or the light or shining is not fitting in. So most people would naturally want to fit in with their crowd or their culture or surroundings at work, and you're probably more reluctant to do the shining or follow that quote. Yeah,
exactly. And some people are lucky to be in a workplace where you don't have to dim your own light, like you're encouraged to actually be all that you can be. They're not the most common workplaces, but they do exist, definitely. Someone else, your reflections on this?
Building on that, like the last sentence, I think there's plenty of leaders out there, but I think ones who you sort of walk away from and like, man, like, he or she's incredible, are the ones that are liberated and they're on the topic of authentic leadership, nothing phases them, they seem like they're 100% themselves in the environment.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't mean in those moments where they have no idea that they don't say it, like they're the ones who say, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Because then, yeah, they're being authentic, it also makes them human, which then ties into you being more empathetic with them, blah, 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 blah. Anything else off this? Your own thoughts, reflections, something that called out to you, or maybe unrelated?
To me that says don't settle. Like don't just say, okay, I'm good at this, so that's enough for me. Continually try to improve yourself, whether it's on one particular thing or just generally overall.
For sure. Anything else?
I like the bit about we are meant to shine as children do. You know, there's just an image in my head of kids and they show off and tell us how good they are and whether they are or not, they just, there's no inhibition there.
Definitely. It's funny, sometimes in a workshop I'll start it and I'll drop like a hand grenade right at the start and I'll say, all right, one by one, come up the front and sing a song for 30 seconds that means something to you. Yeah, people do that phase where it's like their eyes are about to explode and they start freaking out. But if I went to a school in like primary school, like when everyone's about 5 or 6 years old and I asked them to do it, shit, yeah, I'm going to come up, they'll sing I'm a Little Teapot, like they'll go crazy for it because they love it, because they just shine brightly and it's completely unfiltered. They might get a little bit too far, start running their room, do whatever they do. But it's that same thing, yeah, a 5-year-old, they're completely liberated. Their comfort zones are massive. They can do all those things for those reasons. Okay, a big part of it is they haven't been rejected or judged throughout their life to that point. Okay, and that plays into it. Any other thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, well, it's funny how like, I spoke a lot. When I was a kid, I was like, ADHD, couldn't sit down for the life of me. I like to kind of show up a bit, whatever, and then when you get puberty, kind of stop a bit. It's like, oh, I don't want to kind of stand out, I just want to kind of fit in with other people. And I suppose kind of growing up where you kind of realise that, you actually put more effort to not shine than to be who you are. Yeah. So may as well just, bugger it. Just be who you are, whether good or bad, whatever. I suppose like that quote is very kind of eye-opening as well. So
For sure.
Pretty cool.
I think it was really interesting when you said like, as we get older, we spend more time trying to quieten ourselves and dim that light, and it's exhausting. It takes so much energy to do that. And the reality is, like, if we were just being ourselves, most of the time, all those fears about judgment, about the other people in the room or in the workplace, they're not even paying attention to what you're doing anyway. But it's this weird story that we all create for ourselves, and it's quite common. Like, I certainly do it as well. Great point, really good. Anyone else off that or something else? So, I'm going to do something now that you probably haven't done before. It's something that we do a lot of at Reach, and it's something that, in my perspective, this is the easiest part of the workshop. Like, all you have to do in a minute when I tell you to is just sit there, put your head down, which I actually can't do because of my neck right now, and close your eyes. And then you just have to listen to my voice. Super easy. So before we get into that, if you have anything in your hands or in your lap or anything, just chuck it on the floor. You're not going to need that. And what I'll get you to do, so this is like a movie in your mind experience. So as I'm explaining it, I'll just get you to, like, when you're ready, just sort of head down, close your eyes, and just really tune in on my voice. If you don't want to close your eyes, that's fine, but I do ask so that you have your head down. So this is, at Reach, we call this a sensory. And a sensory can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So you're sitting there with your eyes closed or head down. A sensory, it's like a movie in your mind. Some people call it guided meditation. Some people call it a reflection. Some people call it hippie shit. What you call it's entirely up to you. But for me, it's like a movie in your mind because it's like going to the movies. Except in this movie, you're the main character. You're the star of the show. And like a movie, there's a storyline. Like a movie, I'm going to play some movie soundtrack in the background. It's not like, you know, the sounds of the forest or anything like that. Just sort of background music just to help with that. Because if you watched a movie without music, it's actually really awkward and really weird. You're just sort of being a bit of an eavesdropper, like watching people talking. So the music adds a huge amount to that. With this though, it's also got the same rules as going to movies. If you talk, you stuff it up for the person next to you. If you start to get really fidgety, you distract the person next to you, then they get really fidgety, then the person next to them, and it creates a bit of a ripple effect. So with this, that's why I say it's the easiest part of the workshop. All you have to do is just completely tune out. So as you're sitting there with your eyes closed, I just want you to get an image in your mind. And the image that I want you to have in your mind is of the whiteboard that I've been using at the front of the room. Just have that clear in your mind. And if you're not sure, perfect. Be creative. Okay, if you can't exactly remember what that whiteboard looked like, okay, does it have a metal frame? Does it have a wooden frame? Is there a ledge for me to put the whiteboard markers in the eraser? Is it stuck to the wall? Is it permanently in the corner? Is it on wheels? Maybe the last time you looked at it, there was stuff written on it. If so, what colour's the text there? How big was the handwriting? Get all this stuff really clear in your mind right now. And I want you to imagine next that you're standing in front of this whiteboard. You got a whiteboard marker in your hand, and you just start writing on this whiteboard. And what you're writing are all the thoughts that are going through your head right now. So if you're sitting there thinking, what the hell is Jeremy talking about? Then what the hell is Jeremy talking about gets written up on this whiteboard. What colour texture are you using? How big is your handwriting? Get all this stuff really clear in your mind. And every other thought that goes through your mind gets written up on this whiteboard. Maybe something about this workshop, something that stood out to you. Maybe it's about that quote, the thing we were talking about most recently. Maybe it's something about your work day today. Maybe you're thinking ahead to what you're going to do after this workshop, what you're going to have for dinner. Maybe you're thinking something random that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. You just keep writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And pretty soon this whiteboard is completely filled with texture. You can't see the white anymore. It's just heaps of scribble because you just keep writing over everything, writing everything. I just want you to freeze. And you pick up the eraser and you start wiping this whiteboard clean. Pretty soon this whiteboard, it's completely white, it's completely clear, and it's completely free of thought. Just like your minds should be right now. Now in a sec, just to help with this, I'm going to play a few tracks of music. Okay, they'll just be in the background, just roll with it, just focus on my voice. So I want you to imagine that it's today, you're at work, your normal workplace, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe that's in an office, maybe that's on a site. It's just your normal standard day. And you're just going about it, nothing's super eventful. Maybe you check your emails, you have a few conversations with different people above and below you. And you're walking from, where you're based, whether that's a desk or just an area on site, and you're walking somewhere else, and as you're walking past, someone crosses paths with you, and it's someone who, in your workplace, you just really respect them. Could be a colleague, could be a manager, could be the manager. Maybe it's someone who, on the work ladder, is actually below you. But I just want you to get an image of that person in your mind, the person who you respect, and who they are, and why. Why do you respect them? What is it about them? What qualities, what traits do they possess that you really look up to and admire? Maybe it's they have a lot of empathy and compassion. Maybe it's their charisma. Maybe you just really trust them. Maybe they have a lot of integrity. And you keep walking, and as soon as that thought's in your mind, it's already disappeared because you literally bump into someone else who is a superior for you. And this is a person who, they may not be your direct superior, but they are superior to you on the work ladder. And this is the person who, when we're talking about positive and negative leaders, this is the person who you don't really have a lot of respect for, that real negative leader. And they look at you and they kind of grunt at you and they just give you a bit of paper. They don't say hello. They don't give you any real respect. They just give you a piece of paper, grunt again, and walk off. And you're literally stopped in your tracks holding this bit of paper. You're not really sure what the hell has just happened. You look at this bit of paper and the top of the page just says things you've done wrong. And this page is literally a list of things that this person thinks you're not doing well. Turns out they were asked to give you feedback instead of coming and sitting down with you and going through those things directly. They've just given you this bit of paper. No context, no ways to improve, just the things you've done wrong. As you're reading this bit of paper, you get that feeling in your stomach where everything just drops a little bit, your hands start shaking, you're not really impressed with this. And you finally make your way to your computer and you sit down and an email pops up. And the email, the subject of this email simply says, things you're doing well. And you click on the attachment, it's a Word document. And there's the face and faces of all the people that you work with. All the people that you surround yourself with. So the first page could be your closest colleague. And it's just a simple one-liner from them about the things that you're doing well. There's one from your direct boss or another boss, and they're saying the things that you do really well. What sort of things would you want to be reading on this bit of paper? What sort of things would you want to see? Who would you want to see things from? And that's just page one, and you look through the page and you think there's probably no one else in your workplace that could be on this document, and you click to the next page and whoever's organised this for you has gone above and beyond, because the next page is not just filled with people from work, it's filled with people from your life. Could be a partner, Could be a sibling, a parent, child, just group of friends. What are some of the things that you'd want them to say about you? The things that you're doing well? The things that they really respect and admire in you? What would you want to read? And you keep going through this page and you're looking at the faces and you've completely forgotten about that person in the corridor. You realise you're still holding onto the bit of paper in your other hand as one hand scrolling the mouse down. And you scrunch up that bit of paper that came from that person with all the things that you're not doing well, and you just chuck it in the bin because you realise that you're actually bigger than that and better than that. And that by giving you just that bit of paper, they've tried to disempower you. But luckily, just by chance, that email came through and now you're super inspired, feeling super confident, feel like you've achieved. So as you're sitting there with your eyes closed, what's going to happen in a minute when I get you to open your eyes again is I'm going to get you should all have a notepad and pens. If you don't have a pen, I've got some up here that I can give to you. I just want you to write down, what are those things that you're doing well? What are those things that you'd want to have read in that email? Who would you want to have read them from? And this is just for you. So be as honest as you possibly can. Now with this, sometimes there can be a little bit of emotion around it, and that's fine, it's really normal. The definition of emotion is energy in motion, means like something's been stirred up in you. So it's that in motion thing. And sometimes when those things happen, it can bubble up a little bit, and that's fine. Okay, it's really normal. And with this, if you want to move to a different part of the room, we've got a huge space here, you can do that as well. Okay, and I'll let you know when we're going to move on to the next part. But from where you are right now, just when you're ready, just head up, open your eyes, come back into the room, and then just start writing that. Things that you're doing well, who you'd want to hear that from, what you'd want them to say. You can unpack that however you'd like. If you need a pen, just yell out. So I just want to hear from a couple of you, like what that experience was like for you just then, the last 10, 15 minutes or so, what that was like for you, what your experience of that was.
I find it to be quite difficult. I realise that I'm probably quite self-critical, so a lot of the things that just kept coming up, just like things that I was doing wrong as opposed to things that I was doing right.
Yeah, sure.
That's probably looking at the end of the scale. Probably more motivational for me. It's looking at good things.
Yeah.
I found it quite liberating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the roller coaster between both.
Yeah. For sure.
It's pretty easy to change mindset.
Yeah. What do you think made it easy for you to change the mindset?
No, just not focusing on the negative.
Yeah.
Just not positive.
Sure.
I tend to find a lot of things that I was thinking about were relationship based. Like, not necessarily whether I just wanted not necessarily be rewarded with knowledge or something like that, but just having a passion for all through family and work life, loyalty and things like that.
Yeah.
High.
Definitely. And it's like, it's a pretty morbid thought, but it's like, you know, when we all die, like we don't want to be remembered for the person who worked at the office really well. Like you want to be remembered for being a good person and for those relationships. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to then set up a bit of a challenge. And I'd love to hear from one or two of you you don't necessarily have to read it off, okay, but just to share with this group what those things were for you. The things that you're doing well, who you wanted to hear from, like why that's important for you. But so far, all the stuff from you guys has been from your chairs, the safety of your chair. For this, you come up the front and you deliver it from where I'm standing right now. So I'm going to leave the space. I'll stand at the back. Whoever wants to go first can go first. We're not going to get through everyone. So I know some of you guys are probably freaking out, which is normal. Okay, but we will hear from a couple of you.
So, things that I thought others might say that I was doing well were positive feedback, providing thanks, gratitude for a job well done, supporting the team, standing up for or backing the team, honesty and providing clear direction. The feedback sort of had two parts to it. So the feedback that was probably of most importance, positive feedback that was most important to me was from my direct colleagues and my direct lead. And I also had, in brackets, acknowledgement by the wider business and senior management for different reasons. And why was it important? I guess the positive feedback for me was in terms of reinforcing good behaviours, good attributes, and also identifying areas for improvement. Self-esteem, so just positive reinforcement of a job well done. And also, to know that your hard work is appreciated.
So before you sit down, like kick-ass job for being the first one to go up. Like it's really hard to break the ice, and it says a lot about you that you are able to do that for a challenge like this. You started off by saying this is what you think people would say about you. Forgetting that, like, what do you, Ricky, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, what do you, Ricky, in your perfect world, what would you want people to say about you?
Basically those.
Yeah.
So they're, I guess, values that I consider important, or attributes or behaviours. And also then, I guess, conversely, ones that I work hard or value in terms of my own behaviours. Yeah. And it's probably, I guess, also geared around my thought process at the moment is that we're in the middle of a month-long 24/7 outage, construction outage. And so it's probably a little bit geared around that scenario at the moment where we've brought together a team for a very intense period of work, I suppose. So some of those things are pretty important. For instance, the positive feedback and providing thanks for guys that are working long shifts and going above and beyond for you to achieve it.
For sure. Good stuff, dude. Really good work. Thank you for going first. Okay. Good stuff, Trish. And so with this, and with that movie in your mind as well, like different questions that I asked in that are going to stand out to different people, and that's totally okay. So while Ricky's thing was really great and unique to Ricky, what you say, Trish, could be completely different again, and that's totally okay too.
Yeah, so mine will be completely different. Yeah. And I'm only going to read out two, but they're probably the two that stood out to me.
Sure.
So I'm going to go through who I wanted to hear it from and what I wanted to hear. So the first one was from my husband, and
what I want to hear from him is that he's proud of me. And then the second one is my daughter, and I wanted to hear from her. I want her to be like her.
How old's your daughter?
4.
4. What's her name?
Mary.
Mary. Tell us a bit about Mary.
She's probably what I thought about when I read about kids and Shine was they mean to shine. Like, she's just so free. She's so excited to tell me about things that she's done in her day. Yeah, she's an awesome kid.
Yeah, sounds it. And why were those two things, like, you know, taking aside who, like, why were those two things that were being said to you, like, why did that mean the most to you?
Probably because it's what I want to hear. And what you want to hear is probably what you don't necessarily hear. Yeah.
Sure. Really good, really poetic.
And it's probably just why you do it, what you work towards.
Great. So good. Hands up if you really respect Trish right now for showing a bit of emotion and putting yourself more. Yeah, definitely. Really good. Really good stuff. And really courageous. It's great stuff, Trish. Really good. And again, very different, but very unique and very valid.
I was similar to Trish. The first thing that jumped into my head was all about family, and I wanted to hear that I was a great dad and I was a respectful and loving father and husband. That was number one for me. And if I can achieve that, that'd be great, because family for me is number one. But I also reflected a little bit about in the work context. In the work context, what I was really keen to hear was hopefully that I was dependable and I was respectful and approachable, but also in my role, you know, technically savvy enough to be achieving what we're trying to achieve.
Awesome, so good. And it's really interesting that the values that you want to have in your professional sense are probably the things that make you who you are in a family sense. Really cool, man. Good, really good to hear from you. Great stuff. Got a couple more. Maybe 2 more.
Pretty much similar to Tim. Mine's about family. But what kind of brought me to like a different space was so a couple of years ago, my wife and I, for our honeymoon, we travelled overseas and we lived overseas for a couple of years and we explored the world together, and I suppose taking on the challenges, the unknowns, going to different places, you know, didn't speak the language or whatever. It was kind of her and I, and so we kind of started out together. So we obviously praise each other for, you know, not killing each other, I suppose. So I suppose in that 10-15 minute session, it kind of just brought me back to that, them times where we encouraged each other, we kind of were there for each other. And what Ella would kind of say to me was, again, similar to Tim, was be a great father and husband. We just have a 6-week-old at the moment. And what's important for me, because yeah, the first thing I wrote was my daughter's name. So at the end of the day, we're here for a reason. And for me, it's family.
For sure, man. Dude, like 6 weeks old. Wow.
Yeah, she's tiny.
Yeah. What's that like? Like being like that
fresh?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm sure everyone knows what most of us here know. That's what it's like. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Really cool. Good stuff. Great to hear from you. 6 weeks. Well done for just being awake tonight. Yeah. One more. Okay, we'll go both of you. Both of you will go one. You guys can sort out fight to the death, however you guys want to do it.
Firstly, I don't think I would have ever sat and done something like that, because I'm really kind of against that sort of thing like that type of, you know, sit and meditate type thing. And while you were talking about writing on the board, and I was just thinking all sorts of shit. And, you know, like, this. And then when you said about wiping the board clean, I went, oh shit, I've just completely wiped mine, and kind of, you know, it sort of made you think, oh, hang on, this bloke might be doing something good here. So, and it's funny because when we're talking about leadership and, you know, I kind of feel that I do reasonably well at my job. I've got a team of 24, 26 guys underneath me, and I really get a lot of, I guess, trust from them, and I enjoy it, and I like it, and I enjoy the job. I really struggle with my kids. Like my daughter's 9 and she's just so much hard work. I don't know if you've got older kids, but like she's just going through this testing time where she just pushes, and I kind of think, I wish I'd I could lead them the way I lead the guys at work. And then when I started writing things down, I've written the same things down that I want to hear from my guys as what I want to hear from the kids. So, but I think I treat them both so different that I don't know, it's just, I don't know how to change that, or whether I need to treat them the same way, or like I'm just, that's something that I'm struggling with at the moment. So I think just to, like inspire and trust and lead my guys, and then have the same from the family as well. But then, from my like the other managers that I work with, just for them to see me as like a clear head, be able to do that to my guys. I like my wife to see that in me as well. Whereas I'm completely different at home. I'll just lose it, and it's really frustrating. Yeah, that's it. Sure. I don't know if that means anything to anyone else, but
no, it definitely does. And I think like one of the best things that you can actually identify, because most people have no idea that they do that. I'd love to open it up to the group though. Like, what do you guys see in Adam right now after hearing all that? Like, what do you see in him?
Sort of, I guess some of the things he wants to see from this is not seeing him by getting up there and being so open about that. Like, it's really good thing.
Yeah, I struck a massive chord with how he started. Like at the start, I just couldn't focus on anything. I was like thinking about random stuff. Like then I was like thinking back on what was out along the whiteboard for ages. Then I was like, oh, I'm going to focus and do it. But yeah, and then really struck a chord with how he said, like at work, you're like thinking about what you're doing. You're so conscious around everything you do, and what you say, and then you get home and it's like, hey, I'm an idiot sometimes. Yeah, completely relaxed that.
I was pretty well the same, felt about the same, like sitting there going, oh God, I don't really sit still or put my head down, close my eyes and sit still very well. I was enjoying writing my mental list on my whiteboard, and I was pretty pissed off when he told me. I don't mind a good list, and I'm just finishing building a house at the moment. As soon as you said wipe it, it kind of like boom, but then instantly like I was just writing back again. Because he made me write my list off. And it took a little while, and then I kind of like lost focus because I was still writing my list, and you were rambling on the instructions, and I was probably 5 minutes later, oh shit, right, and then I kind of engaged, and then when I did try to wipe my list, my toes are kept moving in my boots, and I don't sit still very well. But, yeah, I was kind of on the same page as Adam.
Sure, and I think the lesson, like from what I'm hearing and interpreting, because sometimes I don't actually listen to the words that people are saying. I listen to, okay, what are they actually saying beneath that? And I feel like, Adam, the real lesson from you, and I say this with having done this work for 15, 16 years, is that bit at the start where you said, like that instance where you opened up. I feel like that's the lesson there. And there's something in that that's, there for you to explore. Really good though, man, really good. And really ballsy to be able to say that too. It's not easy. It's really good, real credit to you. Courageous. Last one.
So, I thought I might share with you all the reason that I'm wearing this necklace that costs about $10. It's not the actual necklace is nothing special, but it's the symbol of it that means something to me. So at the start of the year, I had a conversation with my nana, who is like 86 or something ridiculous, and probably 2 years ago lost her partner, my poppy, for like just suddenly for no reason. So she's been having a really hard time, but this year her New Year's resolution was to start trying new things. As this 86-year-old that, you know, she's got bolts in her ankles, stents in her heart, she's got bad hips, she can't do anything, but she's going to, you know, go join the cards club and start playing carpet bowls and all this sort of stuff. So I was just like, if my nana at 86 years old can start trying something new, then why can't I? So this year I've just been trying to be really bold about different things. I've thrown myself into a new job. I'm doing an interior design course just for the fun of it. You know, just trying lots and lots of new things. So really nerdy. Triangles are symbol for change. So that's what that's about. So all of the things that I wrote down were just basically centered around that. So wanting to hear that I'm doing really well at that. It's all about you know, growth and personal development and not settling for who I am. I'm trying to grow beyond that. So that's my story.
Great, so good, so good, great stuff. While I set up the tech, hopefully, which could work, or may not, I just want you to turn to the person next to you, and there will be a group of 3 in that back row, because there's 5 of you. Just what your experience of that has been. It could be what you wrote, could be like what was going through your mind when we did the sensory, the movie in your mind thing, could be something that someone said that really stood out to you. Whatever you want to say, by all means go for it, but just turn to the person next to you and just discuss that. So this next clip I'm about to show you guys, and I'll get you guys to watch it and just sort of think about, actually I'll give you the question at the end of it, but this clip came to me in a really random, bizarre way. So my background, my personal background, what I do away from this is martial arts, and my grappling coach, we've got a private Facebook group, and he put this on there for us to work at, showing leadership in our gym. Which is really interesting when you train with a group of cage fighters, like what leadership looks like. But it just had quite a profound effect on the group, and it made those little things become really big things. And the thing that I took away from this, and you'll take away something completely different, which is totally sweet. The thing I took away from this was leadership doesn't have to be a big thing. But let's just roll with this and we'll see how we go. Hopefully this works. Or not. Eee.
I want to just start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do, that we convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader, and we don't let ourselves take credit for it, and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who've helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school in a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, I remember the first time that I met you. And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, on my day before I started university, I was in a hotel room with my mom and my dad. And I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go on the first day. And if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us and we'll take you home. We love you no matter what. And she said, so I went the next day and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready, I knew I had to quit. And she said, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the student union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shine Around, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along, and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shine Around. And all of a sudden, you got to me, and you just stopped, and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me, and you smiled, and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop, and you held it out to him. And you said, you need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turned beet red. He wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face, and you looked at my mom and my dad, and you said, look at that. Look at that. First day away from home, and already she's taking candy from a stranger. And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm going to miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, you should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker, I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment, and I searched my memory banks because that is funny, and I should remember doing it, and I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an incredibly important person in my life, was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us. And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you change the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today.
Sweet. So, what I want you guys to do is I just want you to think about what that lollipop moment is for you. So it could be a time where either you've been the one to give the lollipop to do something small for someone, or a time where you received it and you haven't said thank you to that person who gave you that moment. Okay, as you're thinking about that, I just want you all to stand up, move your seats back to the side, and I just want you to be back standing in a circle for me. So I just want to hear from a couple of you, like, with your own definition, like, what's your lollipop moment? I want to hear from 3 people. Whether it's you've given the lollipop or someone's given the lollipop to you, and either you've told them or you haven't.
Well, the whole time I was just thinking about the story that I just shared about my Nana. Like, that was my lollipop moment, and I have definitely been, like, keeping her updated on, like, Nana, I did this, now I'm doing this, and yeah, just keeping her updated on all the things that she's been inspiring me to do for the last couple of months.
Great. And how does she react?
She's like so proud, and like she hasn't actually started some of the things that she said she was going to, but I keep telling her that I'm doing this because you said so. She's like, oh, now she knows that she needs to do those things because she's the inspiration for it.
Great.
Yeah.
So,
a lollipop moment, and it was a Bucks party, and just standard Bucks party, drinking with boys, whatever. A few guys there that I'd never met before, and then I got to the guy's wedding, and there was a guy there that I remember having a few beers with on the night and just hit it off really well. And to this, like, I haven't seen him again. Had a bit of contact on Facebook or whatever. When I saw him at the wedding, he told me that he went to other people and said what a great guy I was. And I didn't think I did anything out of the ordinary or anything special, but to just have somebody of your own age speak that way about you was really, really powerful for me at my age. And yeah, it was just something that I haven't, you'd think you'd keep in contact with somebody that's thought so highly of you after a very short amount of time. But it's something that I often think about, just those words at the wedding, going, oh, you know, I've told people what a great guy you are, and I just often, if I have a bad day or something like that, it's something I go back to, and it just instantly makes me feel really good about myself. And that's been my moment.
Awesome. One more.
I had a lollipop moment. I guess I think you could think of it that way. A couple of years ago, when I completely changed roles with an organisation, before I changed roles, I worked for 2 previous bosses, and I basically said, look, you know, I went for another job, they're telling me I'm going to be successful, will you be a referee for me, blah, blah, blah. And they were, and then a couple of weeks later, by the time I was finishing up, I was told by my first boss in the organisation that he spoke with our big boss that he's leaving, that sucks for us, but it's good for us because he's out there now. And there was a bit of not so much a culture issue, but a bit of like us and them. So I work for council, so you know our administration building is just down the road. Our engineering office where I used to work, and then our construction section out near the Knight Stadium. It was a bit of like us and them between the 2 offices. So I was basically leaving in town to go out to our works depot. And I was told by my boss that he had a discussion with his senior boss above him that it was a good result for them that I was going out there, because I would maybe enlighten them into some of the ways about thinking or doing things that they wanted from, say, the engineering point of view and the way we do things on the ground. They never saw eye to eye, and they were always clashing, blah, blah, blah. So they saw it as a positive that I actually left them to go out there and would say, oh, you know, the reason that they want things done this way is because of this. So I was told that, you know, we're kind of sad you're leaving us, but we're happy that you're going out there because it's going to help us or benefit us.
Sure.
And I just thought, I was surprised that, you know, they spoke about that, and I was probably only, I would have been 22 or 23 at that stage, and for them to hear and say, oh, you know, we think it's a positive thing that you're going to go out there and work with those 40 and 50-year-old guys because it might change the way they do things. That was, I suppose, what call it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's those things that we just don't know, like, until sometimes you find out down the track. Sometimes, like that dude in there, it's like 4 years down the track. You don't realise the effect that you have on someone. So with this workshop, and just as I start to wrap this up, like, we've unpacked a lot of different things, but really, like, all I do in these workshops is just plant a seed, and the seed, I plant that in your mind. It's the one thing that you're going to take from this workshop, either the message that you got to walk out the door with, or just simply the thing you're going to remember. So I just want to hear from maybe two of you. What are you going to take from this workshop? Because we've been here for 2 hours, we've covered a lot of different territory, and like if you walked in thinking, oh, this is what we're going to be doing tonight, then you're a mind reader, but I would have thought that most of you would have come in not expecting to get to this place. So just want to hear from two of you. What are you going to take, or what's the thing you're going to walk out with? Sorry.
I think it's just about those little things that, that like what we're just discussing, that you don't realise that people are noticing, and just to remember that they can be really significant. So I think I'll probably be more mindful, just trying to not lead by example, but just take notice of the little things about how you engage with people in the workforce, or whether it's your family, or trying to be better human, like in general, I guess. So but obviously realising that we're not perfect, and that it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think that was something we saw tonight. That we're supposed to be in this kind of future leaders program. We try and pretend that we've got our shit together, but we probably really don't. And it's nice to be able to break the ice with everyone tonight in that way.
For sure. And when it comes to being vulnerable, like something that a lot of people like freak out about, but it's one of those things where the more people embrace it, the more it inspires everyone else around them. So like when we're talking about authentic leadership, for me it's not the word leadership, it's authentic that's the important part of that. Because the more real and honest you are, the more those things that we wrote on the whiteboard at the start of the workshop start to flow, and start to flow really naturally. Really good point. One more, what are you going to take from this workshop? The thing you're going to remember?
For me, it's not letting fear or inhibition hold you back. The session with the meditation or whatever it was really eye-opening for me. And just backing yourself and not letting fear or that inhibition hold you back, or the perception or the potential perception of what some one person will think may or may not feel or think.
Sure, really good, really good. And with this, like, because it's not the type of thing you would have been expecting when you walked in here, it can bring up a whole different range of things for people. So you might be feeling really flat after this workshop, which is a really normal response. You might be feeling really energized and really charged, also really normal. Basically, how you feel after this, it's quite normal, because it's what it is for you. The important thing though is that you keep talking to people and keep reflecting back on that authentic leadership, that authentic bit, and how that influences you. And whether that's at work, whether that's at home, okay, oftentimes they're one and the same thing. Those values that we want to be and want to have at the workplace are generally the values that we want to hold outside of the workplace. But with this, I guess the last thing before we wrap this up is, just as you're walking out tonight, just think about what your lollipop moment can be for someone else. Like, when's the time tomorrow, the day after, next week, when you can metaphorically give someone that lollipop. But from me to you, thank you very much for listening to me. I've really enjoyed this, and give yourselves a massive round of applause for being here and participating. It's been great.